All right. Thanks for having me. And thank you guys, for a fun day at AHO. You know, it was a good way to practice what I'm going to say today, now, in front of you. It's mostly true, what was just said about me. It's true that I try really hard. At least I think I do. Indeed, so I have a partner, Johanna, who's not here, obviously, but who's lovely, and I should start putting her name, because like by far our best projects in this slideshow are together with Johanna. And I have a great office and a great team of people working with me, and it's growing fast suddenly, which is awesome. So just bears mentioning. So again, thanks for having me. My talk today is all over the place. Someone just asked me, like, is this recycled, or do you make it specific? And the answer is I actually like mess around with this every week. And then as soon as I think I should have changed it differently, like immediately. So that just have to bear with me, and I change my mind throughout the time. But I mean, just talking about living, I mean, one of the places that I like to start like my own thing is that somebody said to me, like, stop making furniture, stop making architecture, and just do mise en scène. And I somehow like feel that that's true, although it turns out not to be my job. So I just want to say, like, if I could, I would just rearrange the furniture all day and call that like a career. And that brings to like another thing that's just about rearrangement. So this is a sauna. It's a sauna. It's more or less the smallest sauna I've ever seen, which is 1.50 meters cube. And it was a bad idea for a vitrine for a totally unrelated thing. And I cut a hole for a door in it with a flex, very carefully, and put a sauna oven on top of Brandelhuber's roof many years ago. And Arno paid the electricity, which was the expensive part. And there's Arno and me, sorry for naked on the second slide myself, but, and Johanna also. And what we want to say about this is that it's the smallest like space you can possibly have, and more or less the most open thing, but then it becomes the most intimate thing you can possibly have, meaning you can't see out of it at all. And heat and so forth aside, I'm totally fascinated from sauna about inside and outside, and about like how that changes, and what's compression and what's openness, and where is that line, and why should we care? And I think that this little thing, I mean, and Arno and I are, nor Johanna, like we are big people, and it works. So it's fun in there. And so somehow I got a little bit known for that, and then this is like the newest sauna, so that was like maybe 5 years ago, so maybe some people know that, but this maybe you don't know, which, although you probably know everything from Instagram, which is sort of depressing. I could also just like click through Instagram as a lecture, which is, sorry. Anyway, Bless got this commission, these two fantastic fashion designers, and it's between this really beautiful little garden thing by Le Balto, French-German landscape architects, and Dan Graham's pavilion, which is the best Dan Graham, because it's the only useful Dan Graham. Like, it's just a really good coffee shop, and it's a Dan Graham. And I couldn't, and I was like, no, you can't put something cute, and you can't put something slick, so you're fucked. Like, this mise en scène-wise, to go back a little bit. And so I was like, all right, and they wanted it moving for some reason. Anyway, I now own, together with two fashion designers, an S-Class from 1995. And we it's really just a car, except then we like turned it, I kind of forgot that I'm in Oslo where you care about saunas. Sorry, until this moment, it didn't hit me that I'm showing you saunas from like a New Yorker point of view. I didn't get in a sauna until I was like 20 years old. So, but anyway, it works. They all work, they get hot, they do the thing. And this idea in general that we have about, in all cases, is about like messing with typology. And so like that's That's a theme, so that you understand something about the fact that you're in a car, but you also understand that you're in a sauna by virtue of it being wood in this moving, stationary, hot thing. I mean, essentially, it's a little bit mysterious, but it's also just that. And it's, in theory, all the work is trying to be, I mean, I hope that it gets exciting, but basically I want you to understand it even if you're 2.5 years old. So like my daughter just thinks like Papa's car has wood and gets hot and likes it, and she gets it totally. There's not a big, it's not like I need to explain much more. But it really works, and the sauna oven's in the back. Right? This is like 2 weeks ago, and it's really comfy. Like everybody asks like if it's dirty. You probably know this. Like saunas, like they very quickly dry out. So like it's not fucking up the leather. It's gonna be fine. I mean, Germans are very upset. Germans are very upset that you've like messed with a beautiful classic piece of design in any way, and they get a lot of flack about it. So this is a little project that we did, that my office did together with Brandehuber for basically like Brandehuber's best house, which I shared as an office at the time. And this is the shop in between there and the bar. So Arno and I went to the bar every day, and the bar owner wanted to open a place, and he couldn't articulate what he really wanted, and we asked for a brief, and like, what are you gonna sell? And he just like, he's into branding, and so he was just like, it's gonna be called Fresco. And we're like, okay, with a K and whatever. I mean, you can get into that or not. And so Arno was like, let's just do, all right, so it's gotta be cold. And then we're like, let's just do the sauna, but a fridge. And so that's the sauna, but a fridge, and it's just, you walk in there. It's really hard to look at this angle, but then I won't see you. It's a fridge. It's a fridge called Fresco. And it's full of fresh stuff. It's really like, I don't know what else to say about it. You don't, if you want to buy a piece of cheese, you go in the fridge. And it works. Again, it works. I mean, the fact that it works is important to me, obviously. And it was really hard to get it to work. Like I had to change the fridge engine myself, which is stupidly heavy, twice, and it was painful. This is a very Arno heavy lecture. This is Arno Brandehuber's desk. And Arno Brandehuber, if you don't know, is like, I would say the best architect in Germany, but that's obviously a matter of opinion. And he's like one of those kind of people who likes to like cheat on his taxes, but not cheat, but like organize a little thing to like save $10 from another thing. So he has a lot of files and a lot of papers all the time. So this is just like, he can print his whatever tax documents on the left in that box. He can work on it in the middle. He can store all the papers on the right, and then all the binders on the far right. So I'm into program at every scale. And one of the students today asked me like, why do you do furniture? And the answer is like, architecture takes too long. I mean, that's really the answer. And also it really takes too long to like do somebody's interior when they just need a table and to talk to them about what color the wall should be. I can't do it anymore. So we're into this idea of piling on program. This is a bed. I think take this out of the next lecture, but I'll keep it in for now. And this is the only photo by me, which is I'm a bad photographer. I remember actually asking my friend Taylor to take photos of models of when we were students together of my projects. But one leg is a headboard, one leg is a safe. I don't have guns or valuables particularly, but I like the idea of suggesting value next to your bed that suggests that you might like find something that you care about and put there. I haven't, like, this is not for me, but like, of course, what turns out is like his kids just put Lego in there, but they love putting their Legos in there, and then the Legos become important, and they're in their safe little safe. And I'm fine. I'm also fine with that. More tables. Lots of chairs, same chair, different sizes. And at first I had the kind of grim thought that like one's for fat people and one's for really fat people, and then one's for the rest of us. But I made them for someone who was neither here nor there body-wise, And I don't have a feeling about people's bodies particularly. I only recently started having a feeling about my own body, partly through my work. But the basic idea is like suddenly if you have these 3 chairs and you can choose them in your own house where you sit, you start to see who you are, right? So it doesn't, and whether or not you're, I mean, everybody, even incredibly fat people fit on the small one, of course. And really nice for tiny people on the big one. But it's somehow you connect to yourself, like you have a little dance, and that little dance is important to me. I don't know what I want to say about that. That's a nice easel that I just made that I should show it with a painting because actually you can put like every size really conveniently on there. Like it goes huge, so it's extremely practical, like that you can adjust the bottom shelf. I traded it for a painting that I'm not sure that I like. I think I need a new painting. Banana holders, you know, I like specificity, right? But of course it works for your keys. Everybody who bought one sent me back a picture of them hanging masks from last year. It turns out to be very useful, sorry. Oof. It's useful. I'm gonna leave it there. This is actually the most useful thing. I swear to you, you can have like a 1.50 meter tall flower or branch in that thing that you can hold with your pinky, and it deals, and like the flower, it gets the celebration and not the vase, which is the only other solution to this problem. Or you have like, you know, this dirty water thing that like when you have a big glass vase, and then like the rings come in there. Anybody know about that problem? Sucks. Not here. I'm like exaggerating my own Americanness, but it's true. Oh, there's Ella, my daughter, who likes all this stuff. Thanks again for her little chair. I just got a model chair today that was exactly her baby chair. And this is a thing that we've been working on for a long time, which are triangle beds, which are useful. Sorry, I'm gonna totally just get off the track of useful or not. What they are is they're good for spaces. They themselves are an unclear space. They're all really big. They're slightly different sizes. There are like about 10, maybe 12 of them in the world. I mean, basically you can call and order one and I'll make it fit, is what I mean by that. And so what I want to say about it is like obviously it's like a space for many things, right? So it can be for the nuclear family, it can be for whatever fun other you can imagine, and it also leaves the rest of the room intact. It's like, I don't know if I have this problem that I'm constantly drawing rectangular beds into floor plans, and that's fair. And the sheets are a problem, I'll admit. And it's a bitch, and like really half the cost is in the sheets because you have to sew triangle sheets and triangle duvet and a triangle duvet cover, and like I say, like the mattress is $4,000, but the sheets will get you. And that's basically fine. But what's really nice is what's left in the room, right? So you can sleep in this like pretty straightforward, normal way, but then you have like a place for another baby. A second baby can go here or here, and then but somehow like the rest of the room doesn't feel like oppressed by a bed, despite the fact that there's an even bigger bed in it, because it's a new typology, but it's a white bed, like it's just a bed, like everybody understands, like Ella knows that that's the bed. She doesn't care that it's a triangle, but she will eventually. She might be tortured by that fact later in life, and yeah. And this is like somebody else's kid sleeping on the corner of a different one and playing like Dinosaur World there. I mean, I can't come up with a better ad for what I do. Just keep going and people jumping on it. It comes up a lot. Totally new tact, but the same idea, like two basic, like really basic thing, like umbrella, chair, together, equals a space that's new and nice and cozy and comfortable and has some kind of you have a new relation with your body. To go back to the other chair that looks exactly the same, less the umbrella, is, I wish I had one to test out, but like imagine that you sit there and like even inside, which is a bit kitsch to sit in a chair inside, but it also works inside when you have like this coziness and this new relation, and you have like your own space. Like when you read a book under this umbrella, you're in your own zone, let's say. More mise en scène. Oh, maybe this is, I have like, the other obsession that I have with the body is like, I don't wear makeup, sadly. Like I really want to wear makeup, I know, and like I've said this before, and people are just like, so just do it. But somehow like my boringness can't get over that. But I'm obsessed with this idea of like light, how we light the body, and so that brings us to like a project that we're working on that has many extents, which is the back of Christian Dior in Miami, the back, like not the shopping side, and that's just like the shitty back, like that's a model of what's there, like an electrical box and a vent to somewhere and two pipes, and then we're making this place where you can, with all those little lights, in an alley basically, but an alley that's sort of important, such that you can go and publicly like have your backstage and do your own like makeup a la Frank Sinatra. Maybe, yeah, there it is. You see, like I doubt what I put as the next slide every time, sorry. Apparently I did it right? This like happy moment when you have yourself in a public space and you understand yourself. I'm really keen on that. We're gonna get to buildings, by the way, I promise. But this is like what keeps me busy. Anyway, and then we just built, that's at the CCA because she wanted, Gianna Barassi, who's fantastic, made this show. And you know, we put this in another room like where she's sort of semi-critical of the self, and I am too, like this kind of cult of self. And so I also like the idea of making, once it gets bigger, like I like the idea of the self as a communal act is a very good thing if like it works. I'm not sure that it does, but it is like an idea that's embedded in that bed and embedded in that mirror thing is the idea that like you can be you, there's collectivity at the same time, and what that brings together I think is important also potentially in bigger architecture things. That triangle bed's in Canada now too, a different one, whatever. People like it apparently. I don't know what I want to say about these cake trivets other than that they're lovely. Those are really uncomfortable. and somebody pointed out that like you would never put it in a corner, never. And it's, so I don't, because it really looks bad in a corner. And I don't really know what I want to say about it, just an interesting observation that if you make a corner chair, like you can't put it in a corner immediately, it doesn't work. This is a show that we just did in Spain that they're actually like, I think it's still there actually, if you happen to go to Barcelona. It's called Bis, our last book. We just published a book. I think it comes out today, actually. I think maybe in my office they get one, or tomorrow. It's the same stuff as before if you've seen Creatures. It's just getting a little meaner. I'm not sure what that's about. I haven't gotten meaner, and there's like, it's equally joyful to make. But I like it looking harsher. So that's this, but it's still practical, right? Like just to clarify, like that thing is a place to put your shoes in, and then that little door flips down, and you can sit on it and put your shoes on, and then close the door, and then put your shoes back in the box, or whatever, either way you want to go. This is a club chair, pretty classic, except you can rest your drink on it. That's a table or a chair, depending on how you want to look at it. We've already discussed that. Oh yeah, the seat for the shoes. Another one where you can like do your, it's like the same thing, like doing your makeup. The new, I already remade it with, I just don't have a nice photograph where the side is a mirror and not the desktop. That was just a fuck up of mine, sorry. But the reason why I do all this is also because I try to do it pretty quick and then figure out what was the right thing. We are already talked about that. I like that somehow this table and chair like invites someone else to come sit with you. I think that that's an important, strange aspect of it, that because it's clearly bigger than a desk, like it's a one chair that with a table that's like that's clearly for two people. That's my favorite part about this. Like when things start to bring people together is when it starts to work, a la this, conversational daybed. Of course, only one person can be tanning at the same time, but you're not looking like a very dark group, so you wouldn't want to tan for that long. Anyway. Ashtrays. Buckets are the best. Buckets are underloved in the world. I mean, you guys all seem to be architects. You look like architects. Can I suggest when you have a problem to just buy a bucket? It kind of works for everything, for cigarettes next to your bed, for your iPhone charger thing, and you don't want to like see it right there. Just put it in a bucket. So we actually, believe it or not, it's like my hottest selling item is I resell buckets on chains. I'm not kidding. Not kidding. People order them all the time. I'm proud about it. Guys, can't beat it with a stick. It's very cheap also. It's like, that's pure Amazon. Like no, like except for the hole in the ceiling, if you don't already have the hook, it's done. A little bit more complicated than the buckets. I don't know if you realize this, but like modernism really fucked us up on kitchens. And like I myself still draw kitchens in lines against walls all the time, pretty much every day. And I hate that. Like I know that I know that there are kitchen islands and like we have this whole other, I didn't invent the kitchen island, to be super clear. But in a small space, although I wish I had because it's a good thing, in a small space I really like the idea that you suddenly start making kitchen things that are about togetherness, and so about multiple people and about where you face and how you relate to people. And I think that plays out in the buildings. Yeah, there's kitchen, it's not an island, and then the pots hang, and then you cook in the middle, and then you cook with your guests, and then, I realize it's inefficient, but I swear to God, 5 years on, she never yells about cleaning behind that dishwasher, not once. Because it's kind of worth it. I can get nerdy about details, but whatever. Heavy things also hold up light things, but you guys all know that. Same story with like a cutting block where this heavy pole that holds stuff like brings the possibility of communal work together. That's in short. Another one for Arno Brandelhuber and Olaf Greywart's tower, just like trying to bring the stove out of the line, trying to bring like function out of the line. It's not my fault. He put the water on against that wall. Otherwise, I would have put the water there too, but it was too late. I begged for the pipe in the concrete, and he was like, fuck off, no way. But I think, again, like the details are beautiful, but I also think that they're bodies, right? So like they're no longer lines in architecture, even though it is a line in architecture. It's still they're like characters, like a little story, and you are part of that story. It's in my top of my agenda to re-photograph them with people in them, because I'm talking about communal space, and at the last moment that are finished, I fetishize the detail and not the fact that people are together cooking at that thing, which is a fuck up, excuse me. But try to imagine the people in the photographs that are coming. Similar story. This is in Oko House. I was talking about it today with one of the students. That column is given by Fray Otto, and so we made a kind of communal kitchen around this column. And we're kind of obsessed, again, with deconstructing the kitchen and then remaking it as a place for togetherness. I can go on and on with that. That's the original one where I just bought a fridge and made a story about it and a tool cart and it's made a shelf. I still have most of it. Ella broke that light. The toaster fell on her head. Somebody stole the tap off that when I was moving once. It's a really expensive Swiss tap from Otto Eicher. But the idea, that's me designing kitchens in this kind of cool way that I was just talking about before I knew how to cook. That's like everybody's favorite image, but you can't cook there. You can't really do anything with that. But it is still kind of the nicest version of it. But I got better at cooking with a little kid and life, and the pandemic helped. But it's also back to this body thing. It's not that I think that you need to have a toaster on a stand, but I do think it's nice to celebrate things and value them, whatever that is, like in your life, in your day-to-day life. I was just talking about, in the last year, like I realized that I went from hating Marie Kondo to loving Marie Kondo, and like we can like individually speak about this over drinks later. I think that it's like the more that you can celebrate your like baseline things that everybody relates to, the better life gets. And I'm quite sure that's not an idea that I invented, but it is like an idea that's counter to the Frankfurt kitchen, certainly, which is not a celebration. It's like it's not very efficient to have your toaster on a stand that you can't put something under. But you can't put something under, so you have that open space and you have that toast, and it's better. All right, this is too many kitchens. But this comes all the time. A marble company asked us to make one, so we did. That, I'm proud to say, is just the trash can. But it puts people in a good mood. Endless. Oh, look, we make houses too. We just finished a little house. I don't want to cast aspersions on anybody else. Like, this is a difficult client, but I really like the baseline of the house, which is 2 volumes intersecting. We called like the foreground one the barn, which is just one room that intersects with the barrack. So, do I have a floor plan? No, but close enough. Maybe it's coming. Yeah. 2 bedrooms, right? Services at the almost the overlap, and then kitchen, dining, living, which is basically how like my core belief in all housing. I think it's kind of like that's just like make the intimate spaces rather smaller and make the public spaces rather bigger, because I think that's how people live. And I tried to make it in the American way. But in Germany, in the American way, those pieces of wood get so much bigger, and so many of them. So it really, because it's like all white and clad. That's like a door through the roof, back into from one of the bedrooms into the. It's a good part, and then it has this upper part. I didn't choose that floor, but fine, whatever. I'm not going to be upset with him. He's a nice guy, and the fact that he hired me at all is. I should give my clients a lot of credit, basically, and I do. And it's nice, and somehow he also the house, the neighbor's house was so big that the German, the house in the background was so big, and our house was so small. It's like 90 square meters or something. That the German the rule is that you have to go parallel to the street with like a fixed setback, like you can imagine, right? And like after the neighbor's house got built, we went like hat in hand to the Amt, to the guy who gives the stamp, and we're like, can we turn it funny? And he was like, okay. And so we turned it, just before construction, rotated it away from the neighbor's house, and he was like, it's fine. This time you're allowed. Because we asked before, of course, for obvious reasons. But anyway, they let us after the ugly house came, which was nice. Another house which is soon to be under construction. It's called the Anthropocene. Originally, Arno and I bought the limited liability, which is like a GmbH in Germany. I don't know what, I'm sure you have a different weird acronym for what that is here, but it's called the Anthropocene because it's like a flood, it's a real flood, like a proper flood zone. Like it's man's fault and it's a slightly fucked place in New York. So that's That's Manhattan. That's Brooklyn. That's Queens. If you've ever been to New York City, you probably flew to JFK, which is over there, in the place with no streets. And it on this side, on one side of this little strip of land is like more or less the nicest big beach ever. It's the Atlantic, so it's cold, but it's pretty. And the way, like proper waves, you can go surfing. And that's this beach, and then Manhattan's in the distance of this photograph. And then there's this like weird leftover peninsula there, and Arno and I and a few other people bought out like a tiny little plot in like a row house area and decided to build a shared communal house with 3 parts. Basically, this is 6 bedrooms, like on 2 floors, with Jack and Jill toilets, which is like a great thing. I love, and I also like saying Jack and Jill toilets because it's a funny typology. And Laubengang, but because like officially you can't like have only Laubengang in New York, so that you can always like walk through all the toilets. But basically you circulate on the outside. There's an outside staircase that goes through, and then kitchen, dining, living, again on what we call new land. It's before Arno bought the house in Fry Auto World, but basically like it's like a relation to this Fry Auto idea, because you have to go way in the air because it's going to flood like crazy there. And our idea was just like build it on sticks. So the left-hand side is concrete, the middle is steel, the right-hand side is like American stick frame, cheapest chips. Like I really, it's kind of that basic. The pool is already out. It's got more basic. And I really like the back facade, which is just like a collection a la that other, like, which is like a collection of like weird air conditioner systems and vents and nonsense. But I like it like to make a bad back facade. I'm like really, that's like almost the most exciting part to me. To make, but also like practical. Oh yeah, the bad back facade. And I think we're getting to the end here. Although, that makes sense. 40. I think I've been talking enough. So we just finished a big building. I mean, big, whatever. You guys many of you are part of huge offices that do huge things. So for me, big, Johanna and I finished Kurfürstenstrasse, which is in the middle of Berlin. And it's a Baugruppe. That's not a concept that exists here. Somebody nod or not, or shake. Shake, thank you. So it's owned by the clients. So it's 21 living units and 4 commercial units. And it was in a really rough neighborhood that happens to be in the center of Berlin. And what a Baugruppe means is like a bunch of people together buy a piece of land and develop a building where they individually own the properties. This it probably does on some level exist in Norway, but it really doesn't exist in the Anglo-Saxon world, so in England and America, because what's like special on a financial level, and I hope this doesn't get too boring and in the weeds, but it matters to the building and it matters to the quality of it, that the bank gave a loan for the whole building on individual mortgages with individual terms. So like it's a collective banking deal from like semi-lefty banks all those such buildings in Switzerland, for example, have them. There's quite a few and you get great interest rates that are quasi-subsidized. They're not really subsidized. They're supported to make community houses, right? So as a result, all the apartments are owned by individuals who have been tolerating me, young architect with very little experience, trying to make a building that big for 10 fucking years. And they deserve a hell of a lot of love, these people, because it's there and it's just like, even they can't imagine, like none of us are like, what? How do we do this? So it's like, because there's nobody, like totally decentralized power, basically. And the bank guy has been replaced like year after year. He just like comes and is like, okay, and everybody, but the main thing is that everybody pays their own mortgage. and it all works out together. And so I get to the architecture part of that, is just that somehow through a common thing, we were able to make something that's like quite ambitious. Like the common, let's say like the common denominator was like, nobody was like, wait a minute, that's too risky. Like the mood in the room generate the next decision all the time. So like if I could be like, this is fun, let's do this. Like we could go another month towards something that became, like I don't know how I would do that with a single person client. Like I think it's too much risk. It's too much risk architecturally to do over, well, with one guy. That's Johanna, again, dressed. We're both dressed again. So this is like a moment where we're trying to, I mean, you see, there should be a picture of me because I like really look older than when I started this thing. But all these people bought into this building without a design, right? That's the crazy, crazy part about it. So I gotta explain something from the site plan. So the other thing that's really important is like it's a corner site. North is like a loud street that's the oldest hooker street of Berlin, right? And south is Garden and South, right? So like it has radically different facades. And all the people, because like you could say we're communists or whatever, but like everybody had the right when they bought in, whether they were on the penthouse richer people or the poorer people, to have like both of those experiences. So that's like one of the drivers of the design on the corner site, to get like every apartment to be a pass-through. You'll see, but like that results in some like complicated architectural trickery. And those people are there. Like that exact woman like said hello to Ella last week. She's there. Like it's like they stand there all day long, and I kind of like that actually, because then the playground, Ella's playground is in the back. So very briefly, it's 6 towers, and this will like get clear, that are parallel to every other street, right? So like that tower is parallel to that street, that tower is parallel to that street, and so on, right? And those 6 towers are double high and 5.20 meters apart, and they interlock, right? So everybody has a double high space of 51 square meters. This becomes clearer in a second, right? So like, I shouldn't show this plan, right? So like that's double high. On the next floor, that's double high, and so forth. And so you end up with like this interlocking stepping section. You seem like I don't know. I mean, some people don't get it at first, including like sometimes me. So just bear with. We did like a lot of study on this particular project because we had time at the time. And these are all models of like what that building might have become. And we had this idea, as I mentioned already, that was important to us, which was to have smaller private spaces and bigger public spaces within buildings. I say the European, but like now that I'm not in Berlin, I'm gonna say like in Berlin, like the structural bay is really rigid. So like a living room and a bedroom are more or less the same bay, right? And kitchens and bathrooms are one bay divided in half, right? And so we wanted to upend that 19th century piece of typology in the floor plans. And so so that everybody has like a kind of, like this idea, this particular model was like sleep down here, live up here. Tiny windows, big windows, high ceiling, that was the low ceiling, etc. And I don't know what that is, I just like that. This was an idea where you're looking through like a huge room into tiny rooms in the back. Doesn't work, too many staircases. Different idea that we're actually entering into a competition now where like each room had its own volume and sometimes they were different heights and crossed. Because we wanted to break up. The other parameter to us was like we hate the 90s thing in Berlin of the block structure. The Blockhund in Berlin is like, is God. And we thought like, what's the edge of Blockhund in that context? So this is the edge. This is the edge because we submitted one where like corner was like more extremely empty and given back to public space, like public and communal space, and instead, and they were like, no, that's too much. And then we did a little more, and they said, too much, too much. So 5 trips to the Bauamt, that's the edge of what is European bloc, according to German bureaucrats, which I like. Oh, another like really fun sectional thing. You know this Marseille, of course you do, sorry. The Marseille Unité is like a very beautiful building. We all agree about that, hopefully. And the Berlin one is also beautiful, but less beautiful. The Berlin one is less beautiful simply because the Germans said that the Germans are bigger than the French, and that we need higher ceilings. And so the modular man guy, like the Corbusier guy that, doing that, that guy is 229 with up to the hand. And the ceiling height in Marseille is 230. And we tried to make this argument that Le Corbusier lost, that we should like make ours have like half the rooms are 230 spaces, which makes total sense. Anyway, this one bureaucrat lady who actually, again, I should give full credit to, like said, yes, you should. I want to be the person also who grants the winning thing that Le Corbusier lost. And I was like, got very emotional in the Amt, which is fun when you get emotional in the Amt, in like a Kafkaesque room where she's in like literally room like 3,912. Like and there's like multiple decimal points, and I don't remember where they go in there, and they're not where you think they go. And it's like 30.910, whatever. Anyway, this lady, and then so we had the whole thing designed, and then we had the clear stories, and we had like another little thing, tower, and whatever. Anyway, they came back the building permission and said you could do 30% special, we can count as like living space, like rent and sell and do whatever, living space at 2 meters 30 at like Le Corbusier's height. So the whole building goes like unrelated to the towers, goes 230, 250, 230, 250, 230, 250, and it's exactly 30%. And I'm really proud about it because it means you can have a whole nother floor and actually like fill out the FAR, what's the FAR in this? The ratio, like it's the maximum buildable area on the site and the maximum height, and you have these double high spaces which don't count twice. So like in theory, you can also build decks in there, which I hate when people do, and it makes me cry, but they do, and they're allowed to, because, well, you'll see. All right, I'm going to skip over that because I'm talking too much. So you see what I'm saying now about this intersection thing, right? We can talk about how to give it. I just finished this building, so like that thing has been gone for like 2 weeks. But basically, you've got these double high spaces, and then they could have whatever staircase they want inside there. And then those here, we're starting to get like finished building again. So like this space is double high, and all the windows touch it, and then they have these lofts that they can go to, and they can do whatever they want. And then you see, I mean, apropos a big discussion that we always have as architects, like you see all your neighbors all the time. And I am fine with it. I've lived there myself for a month. It's okay. I don't stand naked in the window. I stand back in the middle naked, and I see out just fine. And so this is, for example, like this particular thing is like, that's someone else's apartment like coming in the layer, right? So it's like a community like jammed together. So like the physical center of this particular room, particularly because this is 230 and that's 250, like the actual physical center of this house is somebody else's house. And that like wasn't entirely on purpose, but you have to come back to like the fact that like I got all these people to buy this piece of land and trust like a 29-year-old architect. So that wasn't that long. I think I was 31, but whatever. For the story, like a guy, and Johanna and I really didn't know what we were doing, and I got them to trust us. So like we showed that model of all those slabs with no walls, and was like, you can do whatever you want, right? Which is not true, as you all know. I mean, you can imagine that I have more than once been accused of being like a used car salesman type. I mean, that's clear maybe from this lecture. But they're happy, I think, mostly. But the point is that the point is, and I'll come back to it, that room can belong to this apartment here, or it can belong to that apartment. And that point is really important. Or, which is coming, although that I couldn't get through the regulations, is like that's a guest room for both apartments. And that I'm like super excited about. That's like possible to do from fire code, although A, what's gonna burn in that room, and B, like you can put 90-minute opening glass doors that are fine, and it totally works. And just that the Germans don't allow that between apartments for reasons that I totally understand. But we're doing it anyway. So, yeah, and that's before I had cool kitchen ideas, so there's like just a line of kitchen line. But it's fine. I now have like my one on wheels with gas, and I have to light my like stupidly expensive gas stove with no power because I didn't put a power cord. But I assume you all know that you never get the electrical right. Maybe you do, and then tell me. That's it.